So I wanted to talk about evolution and maybe a little bit about the creationism evolution debate. Um, but I don't want to go right into that at first. I want to talk a little bit about the Hindu interpretation of the birth and evolution and creation of the cosmos because it's different from both Western sciences interpretation and the Judeo-Christian interpretation. Um, and basically, the Hindus have a god, and God is Brahman. But Brahman, unlike the Judeo-Christian God, is in no way separate from the created universe. Brahman is his own creation, or its own creation. And not even Brahman knows what Brahman does. The birth of the Hindu cosmos would be Brahman formerly existing in a self-contained, self-fulfilled, non-dual wholeness of pure radiant bliss and light. Brahman gets born, and creation occurs. And you can think of it in terms of the Big Bang, or some kind of an expansion outwards and a separation from the primordial unity. Um, and I'll just talk about it in terms of the Big Bang because it's a fine metaphor. Um, the original point before time and space is Brahman. The Big Bang occurs. That's Brahman releasing himself so that he can loose himself. And evolution comes into this because, from the Hindu point of view, this is an evolution. So Brahman is going to lose himself at first in order to regain himself after however many billions of years of evolution. Um, but initially, it's called involution, when the Godhead uh, breaks down into the manifested world and becomes matter. The, the first stage of Brahman's separation from himself is really, the expansion of light, the creation of light, and then light cooled down and became atoms, matter. And matter, from the Western scientific point of view, is this dead stuff that floats around, bangs into other dead stuff, and once in a while it gets lucky and a unique chemical reaction occurs and creates a kind of high level property that can arise. So hydrogen atoms can become helium atoms when they're in the center of a star. And helium can become heavier elements as the star's life goes along. But for Western science, all of these stages are accidents, right? They weren't inherent in the original seed of the first hydrogen atoms. They weren't inherent in the seed of light or the tremendous energy that was released at the beginning. Basically, anything could have happened. And the fact that what happened is, statistically speaking, almost impossible. And that's why a lot of scientists will speak of the fact that human intelligence arose and exists and evolved out of this dead matter, this blind, unintelligent, universal collection of dead forces and dead substances, created intelligence. That they'll say that that's a fluke. And I think that the psychological background to this is it's what Francisco Varela, a biologist, called the Cartesian anxiety. And what that means is because our way of thinking about our place in the world really does define and shape our way of experiencing ourselves in the world. When Descartes formulated his cogito, and he didn't invent the cogito, he just described an experience that for Enlightenment humanity was it seemed like common sense. So he was describing his experience in that time and place when technology was really starting to take off for the first time. And, the mind of man is recognizing more and more that there are patterns in the world that we can recognize and come to know and then employ to manipulate the natural world in whatever way we see fit. And so that's really the reason that Descartes felt this need to separate the external mechanical machine world, matter, from mind, the internal conscious spiritual soul that's connected to God. And in a sense, he was trying to save himself from this machine, because he didn't want to be a machine. Even though he realized, wow, apparently we can explain everything in this world out here based on causal laws and mechanism and geometry. And I think that shocked him to a large extent, even though he was such a proponent and he championed the scientific method so much. He only did so because through his philosophical argument, he was able to save his soul from the profanity of a created world that's nothing but a machine. And what happened to Descartes, basically, Descartes' philosophy was, in the consciously, for science and philosophy, they said, look, there's no soul. Descartes was just a Christian still, and he threw that in there because he didn't want the church to get upset. But we know now that we're mature scientists that there's no soul, it's all mechanism. I am mechanism, you are mechanism, which means you're just made of dead material particles. So they sort of threw out the other half of Descartes' dualism and kept only the outside part. And not only is this, I think, an offense to consciousness and the fact that we all do have an internal experience of the world, not only is it an affront to that, it's an affront to matter. Because I think matter is a lot more alive than science gives it credit for. I think the whole evolution of the cosmos, from the Big Bang to the first atoms, to the first stars, to the first solar systems, to up until the point of life, that whole process of development, to me, that doesn't seem like an accident. And I'm not saying there's some God, the Father, up on a cloud in heaven, designing and manipulating this all from the outside. I'm just saying it doesn't seem to me that science is making matter into an abstraction, into a measurement that it has created. Physics progresses by making up a mathematical equation, building a machine to test that this equation lines up with the actual data. But keep in mind, they designed the machine to collect the data and the equation to interpret the data. And then nature does a little bit to respond to that all, I guess. But most of this is a created construct that the scientist has thrown into the world to manipulate it in such a way that the result comes back in favor of his little equation. And then the little equation becomes some kind of fundamental truth. And it is true in the sense that we can predict the same phenomenon again under the same conditions, using the same machine and the same objective lab situation. Let me read this from The Life Divine about matter. Sri Aurobindo's words. In a certain sense, matter is unreal and non-existent. That is to say, our present knowledge, idea, and experience of matter is not its truth, but merely a phenomenon of particular relation between our senses and the all existence in which we move.